Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on August 18th, 2021 at approximately 8:47 a.m. PST. Yesterday I mentioned that I was going to be talking about what happens after death. People talk about near-death experiences. Near-life, that's an interesting one. People talk about near-death experiences. Well, in all fairness, from my standpoint, way beyond the near-death, been there a number of times. As I've mentioned before, and you can choose to believe this or not, because I'm not going to be able to prove it anyway. Okay, but before I hit 10 years old, I was clinically dead, as in doctors had to restart my heart 4 times. Since then, I've been dead at least 4 times that non-doctors helped with bringing me back, or things just re-kicked. Take your pick. In any event, a couple of things, because there is a lot of fear, it seems, around death itself. And this is just one of the philosophies I've come to understand, one of the many tools I use myself. Having been there, as I've mentioned before, very important that when you're aiming at doing something, or when you're about to do something, talk to somebody who has done it successfully. Okay, that is the best way to get the insight. Not the ones that necessarily have the paperwork, okay, but the ones that actually know what they're doing. Sad to say, and that sounded like an insult, it probably was. I've seen a lot of people with paperwork that they really don't seem to know what they're up to, but I had one businessman tell me flat out that all the degrees in the world don't matter, because all they really tell you is that person had a good memory at the time they graduated. Okay, now that said, before I get into the issue of what happens when you pass, or at least what happened when I passed, okay, before I get into that, if you like the video, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel, because there's a lot more information coming out. And don't forget to hit the alert bell, so that when the next video comes out, you get word of it right away. Also, thank you in advance for sharing it with the people that you feel can benefit from it. Or for that matter, the people that you just figure you're going to annoy by sending them another video. But that's your call. In any event, I talked yesterday about the issue of fear and where it comes from. Well, the fear of death comes from a lot of things. And in all fairness, a lot of religions make people fear death. They really paint a picture that's absolutely horrific. Now, personally, I'm not in any hurry to die. I've never been suicidal. One of the videos I did months back, I think it was months back, I talked about the closest I came to doing something that likely would have killed me. An issue about potentially jumping off a ferry. But the thing with death is this. It is one of the few things that every single entity in existence shares. Everybody dies. So let's cover the basics to start with. That's, if you're worried, are you going to die? The answer is yes. The question is not, are you going to die? The question is, when, and much more importantly, how are you going to live until that point? Now, just a quick little note, for those of you that are worried about when you're going to die, okay, and even the ones that, if you've been told, oh, you've got cancer, you're going to be dead in 6 months, I want you to do yourself a favor. Take a look at the bottom of your left foot. If there is no expiry date on the bottom of your left foot, it may be to your advantage to really question whether or not the doctor was right on their diagnosis. Okay, I mean, you think about it. At 5 years old, I was diagnosed dead. They shipped me off to the morgue. I walked out of it because I didn't agree with their diagnosis. And frankly, here I am, and rest assured, I'm a little older than 5 years. So, if you don't have an expiry date on the bottom of your left foot, the odds are somebody missed on the death time. You may die. There's no question there. And personally, much as I'm not interested in dying again, I do have this thing about not dying in certain fashions. Okay, I just as soon, like most people, I just as soon go to sleep one day and just plain not wake up in the morning. Okay, or like an old friend of mine, well, he was actually a young friend of mine, like he did. He was walking across the yard during his birthday, and he had an aneurysm. He was dead before he hit the ground. There was no drag to it. Okay, there's a lot of ways to die. Many of the paths for death can be absolutely terrifying. But death itself works in a very simple fashion. Now let's get a couple of things organized that actually add up. Okay, these are the things that you've been told that from my experience actually do occur and have occurred every time I've died. You get told your life passes before your eyes when you die. Well, it does. Or at least it did for me every time. But here's the thing they don't tell you. It passes before your eyes based on what you went through and what you did. If you spent the majority of your life being decent to people, giving them encouragement, giving them pats on the back, metaphorically or physically, basically helping people, then you're going to feel all of that warmth, all of those hugs, all the congratulations as you pass away. Okay, but you'll get it all at once. Needless to say, this is what ends up happening when you take a look at somebody, whether you know what their life has been like or not. You take a look at them, and quite often they'll have this really serene look on their face when they pass. That's why. Now, conversely, if you spent your life beating people, shooting people, stealing from people, just being a flat-out bully, mistreating people, whatever, okay, you will see your life flash before your eyes as well. Also, based on what they went and what they experienced. So every shot that you took, every punch, every insult, every single degrading thing you did, you're going to experience that based on what you put other people through. This is karmic law 3 at its best. Energy out, energy in. Whatever you're doing, whatever advantage you're taking in people, you're going to feel that disappointment, that shall we say, that emotional pain on your deathbed, and as you die, you'll go through all of it at the same time. Now, the reality of that is, picture if you've spent your life being miserable to people, and let's just say you haven't been extreme. You've just been, generally speaking, grumpy. Okay, and you just didn't smile at people. All you had was a passing, like, leave me alone type comment. Okay, you're going to feel all that, and needless to say, it doesn't leave you looking like you really had a good time passing over. That'd be the first thing. Now, before you get carried away with it, let's say up until this point, you've been walking down a path that has been that way. You've been bullying people. You've been taking advantage of people. Whether they had money or not doesn't matter. What matters is whether you've been treating them the way you desire to be treated. That's where the real key is. Okay, and let's say you've been living a, shall we say, less than admirable life. Okay, it's not too late because it works on a balance. So if you've been leading a negative life for the most part, and you've gotten to this point in your life right here, right now, and right here, much like in the movie The Christmas Carol, you all of a sudden flip around and go, from here on out, I'm going to do my best to be nice to people. You turn around and do that, you'll balance the scales, and again, it'll bring things back up so that the majority of what you've done is a positive thing. Net result, you get that massive wave of thank you very much, and the pat on the back, and then, we'll see you soon sort of thing. Okay, that is the way to turn that around, and you can do it yourself right here, right now, starting right this moment. How you got to this point, you cannot alter. But you can stack the deck on the other side. If you've been building up this pile of negativity, and now you start working immediately, okay? And immediately, by the way, maybe a week and a half down the road when this finally sinks in, or when you finally get to this particular video. But you start working on the positive side, and you start building up the positive things, and you'll find that all of a sudden it brings the scale back up, okay? You start adding more and more light to it, and all of a sudden you've got a life that is working a little better. Now, here's the nice part. That's the start of it. Now you've gotten through the threshold. Now, we keep getting told, people that I've talked to, a lot of people that have gone through near-death experiences, okay, they go through a couple of things. Number one, they're told, go into the light. Okay, like when a medium or when a spiritual cleanser comes along and says, I'm going to help them move over, I'm going to guide them into the light. Well, that does occur. Okay, it's an odd setup. Okay, but the light you're being guided into is quite frankly, it's what many belief structures call purgatory, or the in-between time. Okay, before you get to heaven, hell, or wherever you're heading for. Okay, so you head for the light. Now, do understand, there's nothing to fear there. Okay, people are taught to fear the unknown. And rest assured, there's a lot more that's unknown than what is known. Here's an obvious example. Okay, now I can take this little container here, and I can go, I know this is a toothpick. Okay, I'm absolutely certain this is a toothpick. That's what I've been told all my life. But I have no functional idea as to how they do it, how they make it. I know it comes from trees. That's pretty much it. I don't know how they form it, how they cut it all out. There's a lot of things I really don't know. I don't even know what kind of wood they use. Okay, so I know they come from wood. I know it goes through a manufacturing format of some form. And I know it ends up in that bottle, which I also, by the way, have no idea how it comes about. Okay, so there's a lot of things that are unknown. My idea here is real simple. Death itself, everybody knows about it. It doesn't matter what walk of life you come from, doesn't matter how nice a person you've been or how mean. You're going to die. It's just that simple. Now, when you go into the light, you will meet many of your friends, family, the ones that have passed on before. Okay, or more to the point, you likely will. If you think you've got no friends, okay, here's the neat part about it. The people that you meet over there, once you've passed away, you come out of the shadow, out of the mist of confusion, and you go into the light. There are people there that you may not realize how much you helped. Okay, like, the reality of it is, you may have simply walked into, like I did one day, I walked into a, I stood in line because everything was going well. And I waited in the baggage line at the airport. Everything had gone well. And I got up to the counter, and the woman, she was having a really bad day, and I'd listened to her absolutely get berated by 3 people before me. So I got up to the counter, and she asked me, she goes, how can I help you, sir? I says, actually, I just came to say thank you very much. My trip went really well. All my bags arrived where they belonged, in good shape. I had great treatment on the plane. Right. And she goes, no, really, sir, how can I help you? I said, no, that really is it. I said, frankly, you were having a bad day, and I figured, why not? I had the time. So I did that. Now, I don't know if that sunk in. But maybe that was the one thing. Maybe she was having a bad day that could have led to a disaster. Okay. And maybe that one comment from me is something that she remembered for the rest of her life. Lord knows I remembered it, and it didn't have a whole lot of bearing on me. It was just another day in my life. But people like that you may have just put patted on the shoulder at just the right time. Maybe when you were a kid, you did something that just picked that kid's spirits up. And maybe they were, yes, there's a lot of maybes in that, because you don't know, in all likelihood. But that one positive interaction may have switched everything around. One of the more extreme cases that I know of personally, I had a woman call me. Okay, bear in mind, I've been doing this work since I was born, and really, publicly, I've been doing it for 48 years. I had a woman phone me, she was suicidal. And she gets on the phone to me and she goes, I'm so depressed, I've tried committing suicide 4 times. I says, yeah, I'd be depressed too. And she goes, what do you mean? I says, well, you tried committing suicide 4 times. You can't get that right either. I says, that's just plain depressing. I says, you might want to choose a different hobby. Right. Well, we had a little bit longer of a conversation. And she phones me back 6 weeks later and thanked me for talking her out of suicide. In all fairness, in my eyes, I hadn't. I had just been me. I just dealt with things the way that it felt right. Right. I managed to get a laugh out of her, confused the daylights out of her, but sometimes that simple laughter is all it takes to help. And those people, if you don't have people you're still close to this lifetime, many seniors run into this problem because as they get older, oddly enough, older people pass away more frequently than younger people. Okay, but you start running out of friends. But when you get over there are a lot of people that you'll have interacted with. Now, I know the really interesting part is people have asked me, what about my pets? Where do they go? Every entity in existence goes to the same place. Okay, you'll run into animals, plants, energy patterns, people, other alien races, other ancient races. It basically, when you come into the light, you're basically walking into one massive gala. Okay, people from every walk of life, from all time frames. Okay, and you start interacting. Now the thing is, when you get over there, okay, once you get through the end of the light, it is no, places that you've been taught, okay, heaven by any name. Because I was raised Christian, I use the terms heaven and hell. There may be other terms, I don't know. One of these days I'll probably get around to finding out, but for the moment I'll work with that. Heaven being an interesting place. You do get to those places. Those places exist. Heaven does, hell does. There's a place where there's coffins all over the place. You can go in and grab one if you figure you're supposed to be living and be spending eternity in a coffin. There's coffins for you. If you figure that you're supposed to spend eternity buried in the ground without a coffin, there's plots that you can go lay down in. There's no problem. Okay. It all exists. The funny part about it is eternity is the question. Eternity is not a physical time frame as we know on Earth and many other planets. Okay. Eternity is simply until you figure it out. Okay. So you're not actually, and I'm not going to tell you the key because I've been told you have to figure it out. In all fairness, I can tell you because, well, once you're dead, you're not going to likely remember it anyway. Okay, because the information that you get on Earth, okay, gets stored in the physical brain. Well, once you die, the physical brain kind of goes out the window, and that whole data tree that you've learned here goes away. The information is there, but you may have trouble finding it, especially when you realize that past lives are very real. That's a discussion we'll get into in another session. Okay, but once you figure out that you're actually not stuck in any of these places, I had a client that came to me. His wife had passed. He was an older gentleman, right? I don't honestly know how old he was, but he had to be over 70. But his wife had recently died. And he came to me. He told me flat out that, that he did not believe in life after death. Okay. That's the wrong story to tell you. We'll come back to that one when it's more appropriate or when it's more relevant. The one I was thinking of originally was the woman that came to me. Her husband died, and they've been very close. Now, her husband had told her flat out, okay, and both of them believed that they could reconnect from after death, okay. And he had told her as soon as he got there, he would absolutely, if it was actually possible, he would get in contact with her. Now, she believed it was absolutely possible. He simply went with, okay, if it's possible, I'll get there. But he was a firm believer that he was going to end up in a coffin, and that's where he would spend all of eternity. Okay. So, when she came to me, it had been 4 years. And he had not made contact, and she was really beside herself because he had said, because she believed it was possible. And she said, was I wrong in believing that? I said, I don't know. So we discussed it for a little bit. I pinned down exactly who he was. We got his appearance, his behavior, the whole 9 yards all sorted around. She goes, yeah, that's him. Right? And then all of a sudden, everything fell into place. What had happened to the gentleman was he came into the light. He came into this massive gala. And the first words out of his mouth, which is what happens in many, many, many cases, was he turned around and he looked at everybody. He goes, I thought I was supposed to be in a coffin. Right? I believed I was going to end up in a coffin. And somebody in the crowd looks at him and goes, oh, the coffins are down the hall. Go down and pick one. So the guy goes trundling down the hall, misses everybody else, and heads off down the hall. Right? Goes in, finds this long, it's kind of like Flanders Fields without the tombstones. Okay, it's that many coffins and more. So he goes in, finds one that's empty, and lays down in it. And he did the normal thing. He lays down, he crosses his arms across his chest like this, like many people get buried like. Lays down, and he lays down. And for him, it takes about 5 minutes. And all of a sudden, he pops his eyes open and sits up and goes, wait a minute. I climbed into this coffin. So he gets out of the coffin, and then he's surrounded by all these people that know him. Okay, all these loved ones that know him. And the one that really stood out to me was this funny little, really big-eyed orange, I think it's called a Cocker Spaniel. Okay, huge eyes, huge ears, was all over the place. I think it had way too much caffeine. But in any event, he said his hellos to everybody. Then he reached out and came straight through to his wife. Okay, and we covered a few more things. Right. And she looks at me and goes, but why did it take 4 years? I says, well, you got to realize time over there is not the same as time here. Okay. Time here is actually quite simple. But the comparative is a day over there is 1,000 years over here. Which means that roughly 1 second over there is about 3.5 days here. 1 minute is about 9 months. Okay, well, if you think about that, that means that 5 minutes made it just about 4 years since he had gone over. Okay, so as soon as he made contact, it's like, look, he just realized he was there. For him, it's only been 5 minutes. The fact it's 4 years over here puts him right on schedule. Right, well, when she walked away from the table, she was happy as all get out, very relaxed. She could get on with her life because he had corroborated for her that she was right, that when she passes away, she is going to meet all these people that she left behind. She is going to see all the loved ones that have gone before. Okay, and she will be able to come back and meet the ones as they come over. Like, she was worried that she would never see her kids again when she died. Okay, and our interaction helped her understand that when they die, if she chooses to still be there, then she would be able to see them. Okay, so this is why when you get over there, yes, go into the light. Absolutely, you will meet your friends, whether they're people, other races, plants, animals. I've got a very good friend that I'm waiting to catch up with, or more to the point, they're waiting to catch up with me. Chap by the name of Gordon. Okay, quite frankly, he was a plant, but boy did he have a caffeine addiction. Who knows? Maybe that's why we got along. And I'm not addicted to it. I just like the flavor better than chlorine. Anyway, once you get over there and you figure out, just like the guy in the coffin, when he figured out that he's the one that had put himself there, that had trapped himself there. Okay, once you figure that out, and that can take a long time. Okay, especially when we start looking at things that are as well documented, and I'll use that term a little loosely, they are documented, Okay, when you're talking about going to heaven, going to hell, okay, burning for all eternity, I will tell you, you start getting burned, it's really distracting to try and get your head on straight. Okay, you don't believe me? Try concentrating on something, anything at all. Well, somebody just pokes you. Never mind hurting you. Try focusing on whatever you're trying to do with somebody just, poking your arm, and see how well you can concentrate on whatever it is. Okay. Now, in all fairness, don't try that. It's really annoying for the person that you're doing it to. And frankly, it takes up a lot of your own time that could be used for all sorts of other things. But, is there anything to fear about death? In my opinion, no. I'm not interested in some of the methods I've seen, but then again, I have tried successfully astral travel, because when I was born, I just decided I didn't want to be here, so I left. Don't do that in an incubator. It's a bad idea. The doctors get really edgy. I tried that method. I tried fever. I've died by poison. I've died by epileptic seizure, by heart attack, by drowning. Don't think, and I think I'll keep it this way, I don't think I've died of electric shock. Okay, I know the EEG machine that they used on me when I was 2 died of electric shock. But there's a lot of these methods that, I've died by a lot of ways. If you look at my past lives, I've died in a lot more ways, many of them extremely violent. And I would just as soon this time like to lay down, go to sleep, and be done with it. Do I fear death? No. Do I fear anybody that's over there? No. Okay. I mean, this is why, for me, death is just another day, another stage. All it really boils down to is your physical body collapsed, and now you gotta go find a new one. Average turnaround time is 70 years, assuming you're on Earth. Okay. Now, that being said, 70 years really boils down to you're over there for about an hour and a half on average. But there are some people that have been there a very, very long time. In my case, I quite often use a real quick turnaround. But it's not a question of looking forward to death. Okay, it's a question of realizing when you die, you will get another body down the road. Now, if you don't believe that, that's okay. That is your right. I'm not here to convince you. And this is one case where I strongly recommend that you do not try and figure it out for yourself anytime soon. Okay, but I do keep these to a minimum here. So again, thanks very much for joining me. How about a thumbs up on the video? Subscribe to my channel, because there's a lot more information coming. Okay, remember to hit the alert button and the alert bell to let you know when the next video comes out. And then, share it with everybody you can. I will be back again tomorrow at some time. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.